Okay, so we are done with these services: VPC, EC2, IAM, S3, Route 53. These are most important services. SCS and RDS also, right? All these are important. But these are the services which you are going to work a lot, work with in real time. And these would be the services that you're going to work more. CloudFront is also again a specific service like RDS or SES. It is generally used for speeding up the website. So I will come into that. Again, these two services we are not really going into depth. Actually, there is nothing to go into depth. It is a CDN service that we will have an overview. Then we will cover EC2 command. CloudWatch is an important service. It is a monitoring service. But again, it is not one topic that we are going to in detail right now because we have another topic coming for monitoring, right? When we start with DevOps, we would be learning Nagios. So we will learn how you can monitor an entire infrastructure using Nagios. That will be the plan. So let us start with CloudFront today. So CloudFront is a service. I don't know if you remember. We discussed when we talked about AWS introduction. We discussed about regions. Then we discussed about availability zones. Then we discussed about edge location. Basically, AWS provide one service to the internet. It is actually a service to the internet, not just the internet. It is actually a service to individual website owners also. What AWS does is they keep a lot of machine throughout the world near to the people, near to the people who are browsing the internet. AWS keep a lot of machine all over the world. Such machine are not regions. They are not regions. AWS are not providing any services through those machines. But one service, the caching service. What these machines all over the world that are owned by AWS does is they will cache the website content in it, right? Probably there are machines in Bangalore, there are machines in Mumbai, machines in Delhi, machines in Chennai, right? In most of the cities, they will have a machine. These machines are very much close to you, right? Near to you, there is a machine which AWS owns. I mean, physically, I'm talking about, right? In Bangalore, you're browsing from Bangalore. Maybe there's a machine in Bangalore. That machine probably have the website content that you're looking for. Not mandatorily, but most probably. If it even if it doesn't have, it is capable of fetching the content for you and then do the caching, so that next time when you browse it, your website content would be served from the cache. So such kind of machines are called edge machines, and AWS has edge locations throughout the world. The term edge means it's actually at the edges of the internet. What is the edge of internet? It's you, it's we who browse, the people who browse for internet. You are the ones who are next to, you are at the edge of internet, right? So near to you, near to everyone all over the world who browse for internet, there is a AWS machine that can serve them optionally. That can serve them. So what is the advantage? Let's say there is a big internet. There is a big internet. It start from maybe it's me in Bangalore, and it goes all over the way to Mumbai. From Mumbai, it goes into, right, other countries, right? Then yeah, Arab countries, then Singapore, or maybe then all the way to Europe, then US, right? It's internet is a spread thing all over the world. And let's say this is you in Bangalore. You want to browse for a particular website, and the website content are located on a machine which is inside United States. Think about this. That would need a lot of bandwidth, right? There is a bandwidth between Bangalore and Mumbai, between Mumbai and right some Arab countries, then from Arab Emirates and Singapore to right. There are I mean, I'm just telling the location. The location can be different. Maybe you are connecting to different location to the machine on the US, but at any point of time, there are multiple network connections involved for that purpose. So everywhere there is, you are using some bandwidth. Everywhere on the internet, you are using some bandwidth. What if there is a machine somewhere here that has the website content that you are looking for, and that machine can serve you the content? Then the bandwidth consumption is only between you and the edge machine. The other complete bandwidth consumption is saved. So it makes internet a better place. Basically, the internet congestion can be avoided if you could do some caching that very much close to the end usage or the edge of internet. Okay, so these edge machines are not free as far as AWS is concerned. If you are a website owner, you need to request AWS to do such kind of caching. AWS already has edge machines all over the world. Let's say I have one website. I want my website to be loading very fast for people all over the world. I have customers from United States. I have customers from Bangalore. I have customers from different places on the world. And for all those, I want them to be able to browse my website very fast. It will become very fast when they could fetch the content from their nearby machine. So what I would request AWS is, please cache my website. I would give the website content to AWS, and I will request AWS to cache my website. Then AWS would cache my website all over the world. Then people browsing for Bangalore, from Bangalore, they will get the web pages from Bangalore. People browsing for my website from United States, they will get from California, they will get the web pages from California. People browse from New York, they will get web pages from New York itself. So uh, people all over the world will be able to browse my website and get the website content from a nearby machine. Basically, those machines are caching my website. That is what the CloudFront service is. So many companies does that, right? Like I said, the web applications are the most popular software applications today. Most of the startups or even the big companies, right? Web application is the critical part in their business. So they would let AWS cache their uh, web application all over the world so that their customers can browse it very quickly and easily. So what you need to give to AWS in order to for AWS to start your caching. Of course, you will have a EC2 machine where you would have kept your website files, or maybe you would place your website file into an S3 bucket, or there would be some places. This is called origin, and to this origin you can connect through HTTP, and you can see your web page. Maybe assume this is a EC2 machine, or it could be a load balancer, whatever. From this machine, you can browse for the URL, the origin URL in your browser. It will connect to this machine. Apache listening on this machine would serve you the web page. So this is a working origin. So what I would tell AWS is that through HTTP URL, you fetch all the web pages of my website in your edge machines. AWS already have machine all over the edge of internet. This machine would connect to my origin. Maybe not all machine will connect to the origin. Assume these are the edge machine which AWS has in all over the world. There are lots of edge machines. Then what I would tell AWS is that my actual website files are located in this origin. This origin URL I will give to AWS. Then what this edge machines will do is it will connect to my origin through HTTP, then fetch the web pages from my machine, and these web pages would be cached in edge machines, and this edge machine will again share whatever web pages it have got with the other edge machine also. Sometimes people browse from Bangalore, they browse for your website, and they get connected to a machine in Bangalore. Even if the machine does not have uh, the actual website content, the machine can either get that from origin, or it can get from that from a machine which has that web page. So AWS takes care of that algorithm. You don't really need to worry about it. But what you need to understand is there is always a machine which is near to you that is serving your customers, right? And those machines are actually getting the original pages from your origin, and this origin you give to AWS. Perfect. Okay. All right, fine. So I give the origin to AWS. That's one thing I did. Then I created a CloudFront account. How will I make sure that people browsing all over the world are getting redirected to the edge machine, not to my actual origin? DNS, of course, you need to take care of the DNS. But how we are going to take care of the DNS? Again, DNS is also managed by AWS. All you need to do is when you create your CloudFront account, AWS would give you one DNS name, just like the load balancer name. They would give you a DNS name for the CloudFront. What you need to do is point your website by adding a CNAME record in your DNS. Add a CNAME record. Point your website to whatever name AWS would give you when you created your CloudFront account. So now people browse for, so these are the edge machine. There are many edge machine all over the world. I'm going to call it a edge network, right? Just a name. There are number of machine in the edge. So now somebody is browsing for a website, your website, let's say basil.com. The request will go to Route 53 or whatever your DNS provider is. The request will go to DNS, maybe Route 53. Assume you are using Route 53. And in Route 53, you added a CNAME record to point basil.com, www.basil.com, to whatever name that you have got for your CloudFront. Some CloudFront name, something like something.cloudfront.net. So now people all over the world who browse for website.com, the DNS server would say, go ahead and find out the IP address of the DNS CloudFront DNS name, something.cloudfront.net. Okay. So now what you would do is you will reach to the name surveys of CloudFront.net. These are nothing but the name surveys which are managed by AWS. Right? So you will finally, your customers would finally reach to the DNS surveys of CloudFront.net, request the IP address of something.cloudfront.net. And these name surveys are very smart. Actually, the name server identify the location of all the users who are browsing. uh, they will identify the location of the person who is browsing. Then it will give them an IP address of the machine which is close to them. So the IP address that they are getting is nothing but the IP address of an edge machine that is close to them. So if I am browsing from Bangalore and this is the machine in Bangalore, that machine's IP is what I would be getting from this DNS server. So assume the DNS server is very smart. I mean, AWS takes care of the DNS for you. You don't really need to worry about what is going on inside. But actually, what is going on is the DNS server already know the other DNS server all over the world. So this guy connect to the through a resolver name server, right? They have a resolver name server. Through this resolver name server is how he connect with the authoritative name server of CloudFront.net. At that point itself, this name server know the resolver name server of the user, and assume this resolver name server is located in Bangalore. Then the Bangalore machine's IP would be given to the resolver name server or to the user. That's how these AWS name server work internally. But you don't really need to worry about it. Just all you need to worry about is all you need to do is just create the CNAME, point your website to the CloudFront name. Then AWS will take care of the DNS and automatically route your usage to their nearby machines. Then he will connect to the machine which is in Bangalore to get the pages from there. So only two things you need to do: create a CloudFront account by providing the DNS name, by providing the origin. Origin is nothing but the place where your actual website files are located. All right, so let's let's do that. Click on services, go to CloudFront. Yeah, yeah, yes, Arvind, go ahead. I already have some machine. Let me delete it. So I'm going to create a new CloudFront distribution. Just click on create distribution button. Web application is what I want to cache. If you want to cache your videos, there is an option called RTMP, right? If you go back, there's an option called RTMP. If you want to stream the videos through CloudFront, you can go with this option. In case I want my web application to be to be cached, so I go with the web option. Here you need to provide the origin name. Either you can give the bucket or you can give your EC2 machine. EC2 machine where you set up Apache, and inside var www.html you can save your website files, and you can provide the IP address of your EC2 machine. That is also fine. Or you can save all your files inside your S3 bucket. But in that case, you should make sure that your S3 bucket is enabled with the static website hosting, because to the S3 bucket, CloudFront machines connect through HTTP. And that's it. And if you want slash, right, slash blog or slash news, if you want to specify the exact path, you can specify it. If you don't put anything, it would make sure that, I mean, it's the root, right? If you don't put anything, it means everything. So yeah, then automatically they would generate some origin ID for me. This is going to be my DNS name, the origin ID dot cloudfront.net something. So yeah, then there are many custom settings you can set. Basically, set up some caching. When what is the TTL? That means every 86,400 seconds, the cache would be cleared on the edge machine, and it would fetch the content from the origin. Sometimes you make some change in the origin. You are changing your website files. In that case, you want your edge machine get updated with the latest data. So you can specify a TTL or time to leave. So every time to leave seconds, Edge machine will connect, will clear its cache, then get the web pages from the origin again. So these are different settings. Just click on create distribution. Even you have the option to select the places. By default it is all places. If you want only Europe or only United States or only Asia, you have the option to select which place your customers are located. So in what edge location you want the caching to be enabled, there are many settings you can provide. So immediately they would give you a DNS name, something like this: DICDCMI something .cloudfront.net. So what you need to do is you need to point your website, add a CNAME record to point your website to this name. That is when the process would get complete. That's all you need to do. AWS would take care of fetching the web pages from your origin automatically through an HTTP URL. They will connect to your origin, then start fetching all the pages from your origin, and they would save those pages into the edge machine. So all you need to do is just point your website to this DNS name. Okay, so that's pretty much about CloudFront. This is actually this would save a lot of your bandwidth also, right? It's a good option if you have a lot of I mean, this is recommended for static files, especially the images, right? Especially the images, style sheets, HTML files, right? So this would apply mostly for those type of files, right? Yeah, that's pretty much about CloudFront. And CloudWatch is a monitoring service using which you can basically monitor the other AWS resources. You want to monitor your EC2 machine, you want to check the CPU load on the EC2 machine, or you want to check the memory usage on the EC2 machine. You want to check if a given process is running on the EC2 machine. What is the disk status? How much data are being written to the disk? How much data are being read from the disk? Lot of information about the disk you want to know. So there are many things that you want to know. The status information of your EC2 machine, or sometimes your RDS database. If your RDS database is getting overloaded, what is the memory use of the RDS? So there are many things that you want to monitor on RDS, or sometimes you want to even check your S3 bucket. There can be many things, many resources in AWS that you want to monitor to make sure that they are working fine, right? That's important, right? If there is something wrong with your infrastructure, you should be notified immediately so that you can fix the problem, right? That's very important. So CloudWatch is a service that provide you monitoring as a service. You don't need to set up anything yourself. All you can do is go to CloudWatch. They will ask you what metrics you want to monitor. Then you can select I want to monitor CPU. Then they will ask you for which EC2 instance you want to monitor that. So I select my EC2 instance. Then I specified whatever threshold I want to put. Let's say if the CPU usage is more than 80%, then I want to be notified. So these kind of things I can mention inside CloudWatch. Then an alarm would be created. I would keep on getting notification if my EC2 instance CPU load is more than 80%. So I will show you. So CloudWatch is basically a monitoring service. Basically, you have lot of things in your infrastructure. You have machines which are running Apache and serving your customers. You have machine which are running database, which is serving your application machine. Then you have load balancers, which is balancing the load across multiple application or web server machines. There are different resources that you have in your infrastructure. You want to make sure that all those resources are working absolutely fine. If there are any problem with any of those resources, you want to be notified. So CloudWatch is a service that can monitor your different resources and alert you in case of anything going wrong. So let's go into the CloudWatch. What you would see in the CloudWatch is metrics and alarms. Basically, it is the alarms that you create if you want to monitor something. Let's say you want to monitor the CPU of your EC2 instance, or you want to check the status of your EC2 instance, or you want to check the availability of your RDS instance, or sometimes you want to check uh, something on the cloud front to make sure that your cache is up to date. So there are many things that you want to check. So CloudWatch is a service. All you do is you create one alarm that would check the CPU usage on a given EC2 machine, another alarm that would monitor the memory usage of a given machine, another alarm that will monitor the S3 bucket. So like that, you can create different alarm. Then you can specify a threshold. You need to specify a threshold, that is important, right? Let's say you are monitoring CPU, then you would say till 80% it's okay. If the load is 80%, it's still okay. But if it is more than 80%, then it could be a problem. So I want to be notified. So that's how you would create alarm. You would mention a matrix. Matrix is nothing but what you are monitoring. That's what I mean by a matrix. So whenever you try to create an alarm, right now in my case, click on alarm, you can see the list of alarm. And all this alarm that you create will have two states, actually three states. One state is in okay. What it means is it's looking good. Let's say you are monitoring the CPU. If the CPU usage is less than 80%, then your alarm would fall under the okay status. But if the CPU load is more than 80, the alarm will come into the alarm state. So over here, directly over here, you can see which of your alarm are in alarm state, which of your alarm are in okay state. So if it is in the okay state, well and good, you don't need to do anything. If it is in alarm state, then there is something that you need to take care. Insufficient data is nothing but basically CloudFront is not able to get the data about your machine. That's what I mean by the status insufficient. So yeah, right now I have two alarm. I'm going to delete both of them. I'm going to create a new alarm. So let's say I have a EC2 machine. I already have one EC2 machine. I want to monitor the CPU usage of this machine. I have one EC2 machine. This is the instance ID. Over here I can see the instance ID. This is my instance. And I want to monitor this EC2 instance for the CPU load. If the CPU load is more than 80% on this machine, I want to get notified. So I'm going to create a monitoring for that. So go here, click on create alarm. I'm going to create an alarm. It will ask me to select a metric. So there are different metric. For load balances, these are the metric you can select from. For elastic block storage, these there are 189 metric that I can select from. For EC2 machine, there are 340 of them. So there are different metrics I can choose from. So in my case, I want to monitor a EC2 machine, a single instance I want to monitor. So I can go with this option, per instant metrics. If you remember when we created our auto scaling, when we learned auto scaling, we created an alarm that monitored your auto scaling group for the CPU utilization. So in that case, it will watch a number of EC2 machine and take the average CPU utilization. That is an option. Those matrices you can see if you go with this option, or if you want to monitor only one machine, not a group. In that case, you can go with per instance. So in my case, I want to monitor a single machine, not a auto scaling group. So I would monitor this single machine that has this instance ID. So go here, then click on the option per instance metrics. Over here, you can search for your instance ID. There's a search box on the top. Over here, otherwise it would list down a lot of different metrics: CPU credit balance, CPU credit usage, CPU utilization, disk read bytes, disk read operations. All these things you can monitor. So I'm going to search for my instance ID. Then it would show me only my instance ID's specific matrices. I can monitor CPU credit balance, many things. CPU utilization is what I want to monitor. So select this option, CPU utilization. I selected which metrics I want to monitor. If I want, I can actually select multiple matrices. That's also fine. Click on next. It will then ask you to set the threshold. So I am going to set a threshold. I'm giving it some name. Let's say CPU of my instance. I can give it any name. Maybe this is not a better idea. CPU of web 001. Right? Now it is more meaningful. Yeah, you can give some name for your alarm. Then you are setting the threshold here. If the CPU utilization is greater than or equal to 80%, then I want it to be an alarm. Bad, breaching threshold. I'm selecting this option as bad. There are three options actually. Good means everything is looking good. Bad means something went wrong. Basically, in our case, what it means is the CPU utilization is more than 80, is what I mean by bad. Ignore means basically you are defining an alarm, but basically you are putting CPU utilization is more than 60%. Maybe this is a alarm that you want to ignore. Even if it is 60%, you don't really bother much because right 60% is not a alarming value, but it's just a normal value. So but basically you don't want to be notified maybe, but you still want to see that in the status as an alarm. So in such situations you can simply create a alarm, then ignore it. Then the alarm would be present at any point of time. You can come into the dashboard, you can check the alarm. But yeah, so in my case I am going to put 80%, which means it is bad. If the CPU is more than 80, it's a bad situation, so I select bad. Then if this alarm happened, what action should I take? I want to set it as a alarm state, or if I want to set it okay, I can put okay. But in case of CPU is more than 80, it's definitely it is the alarm state that I want to choose. Then over here I have an option, I can send a notification to people. So you can either select from the drop down your name, or you can create a new list. Click on new list, then provide the name of the people and their mail ID, let's say. Right, you can provide the mail ID of the user like this. That's it. If you want to send more notification, again click on or you can have more easy to action. Again you can send out no. Okay, or even I can take action, right? Even I can take action, not just notification. If I want to send more notification, I can click on plus notification, then again send notification to the other guys also. That's also fine. Or I can take an action based on what the alarm had it. If it is more than 80%, then restart the machine, reboot the machine. So this is also something I can do. I can select some action based on what this alarm would give. Okay, that's it. Then click on create
Basil,
alarm.
we are giving only one condition.
Mm-hmm.
Basil,
Mm-hmm.
we are giving only one condition here. Can we give more than one condition, like CPU utilization is more than 40% and more than 40%, less than 60%, and more than 80%? Like this, we can give more conditions.
In a single alarm, I think that's not possible. You cannot
Yes.
do that.
Excuse me, Mr.
So
Basil.
we have to every time we have to create a similar.
Separate. Yeah, one for yeah. There's no such options.
Mr. Basil. Mr.
You
Basil.
have to create a one for 80%, another for 60%. You have to create multiple alarms in that case.
Mr. Basil.
Yes, Musammal.
Yes, we are actually is doing the condition right now, and in a condition, if a CPU is greater than 100%, what will be the condition? If the CPU alarm, what will be the alarm reaction? What will be the
Basically,
alarm
the
do if?
alarm is up to you to define the threshold. If you define it as 80, then 80 is the threshold. If you want to define it as
So
100, you have to define it as 100. It's more like you are deciding when you want to get yourself notified.
So we are basically doing the monitoring the memory machine. Basically, we are it's a capital watch, right? Cloud watch. I'm sorry, it's a cloud watch, and We are doing the basically it's used to monitoring the machine, and it's a service provide you a monitoring of service. Am I right?
Exactly.
Okay. And what about the cloud front? Actually, I just 15 minutes ago I joined the class and I missed the cloud front. What's the concept? Can you give me
Watch the video.
afterwards after?
Yeah? Just
Okay.
watch the
Okay.
video
Okay.
after I upload.
Okay. Okay. No problem. I'm sorry for disturbing you, man.
No
Sorry.
problem. And join the
Okay.
class in time if as soon as much as possible. Try to join the class in time.
Yeah. Actually, your weather is very bad. I'm sorry about it.
Yeah. Sure. Okay. So yeah, you can see that the alarm came into the OK state immediately. The reason is actually right now there is absolutely nothing inside my EC2 machine. The CPU is very normal. It is less than 80%. Then automatically the alarm that I have created came into the OK state. State is equal to OK. Yeah, and you will get notification only if you confirmed your mail ID. I mean, they would have sent me an email to whatever mail ID which I provided. I need to click on the link which says send, then only my mail would be verified. Unless I verified it, I will not get notification. Can we monitor the network traffic using this? I think yes. It can monitor SMS. In load balancer, it should be possible. Let me see. But I don't have a load balancer. New connection count, processed byte. What is that? I think this is what you need to monitor. On the load balancer, there's an option called processed bytes. So whatever traffic is coming into your load balancer would be monitored. Or if you want to do it per EC2 machine, I don't know if you can do that. Yeah, you can do that also. Network in, network out. There are different matrices like network in and network out. You can create monitoring for this thing also. You can see how much traffic is coming into your machine. You can do that on per instance level as well as per load balancer level. Okay, so that's that's pretty much I wanted to discuss about CloudWatch, and we will discuss more about monitoring. Actually, that is one of our topic that we will cover next week. Nagios. Nagios is a third-party tool. It is a free tool, which is one of the most popular monitoring tool which is being used by people. It is a completely custom tool. You need to set up the tool yourself. It's not a service. It's a software that you need to install inside your EC2 machine, then configure it manually to monitor your entire infrastructure. So that we would be covering when we, I think, next week or maybe the week after next. Yeah. And the next week we would be starting with Chef, the config management. So I want you to complete your assignment on AWS this weekend itself, because next week it's going to be a little tough, little new actually. So just make sure that basically our next project is starting next week itself. Once we are almost completed with AWS, you need to complete this assignment. This is one of the project actually that you are going to explain to the interviewer. So how you would explain this project to the interviewer is something that we will discuss, if possible today, if not on Monday, right? We will discuss how you can relate these things with a actual real-time project, right? I mean, just working on the assignment and you wouldn't be able to really explain these things to an interviewer. That's different, and that we will discuss on Monday how you can. But I want you to finish this complete work by this weekend, because next week it's going to be very tough. I mean, no, I wouldn't say tough. If you don't finish the assignment this week, then it would be because I want you to complete this before you start with the next. After next week, you will get some time. You will get almost some time, maybe one more week to complete the chef assignment. So that is fine. But AWS assignment, finish it today and tomorrow, right, by Sunday. So now we will start with EC2 command line tools after a short break. Take a short break of 5 minutes. Then we will start with EC2 command line tools, basically how you can work with AWS using command line. Yeah, yeah. Take a break, 5 minutes. Our last topic in the list is EC2 command line tools, and I hope you all took my Python programming class. We already discussed about Boto module. Right. So EC2 command line tools. So we may have discussed this during the Boto module class, but I will talk again. Actually, there are two ways you can make change into the AWS resources. That means if you want to create a machine, you want to create a VPC, want to create subnets, whatever action, want to create a key pair, want to create load balancers, any action which you want to perform in AWS, you can either do that through the AWS management console. The management console is nothing but the one that you have been using. You log into your browser, then you get access to the management console where you can click on some button and get the action done, whatever action that you want to perform, get the action done by selecting individual services. Okay, the second way is you can run some script in your laptop or in from a remote place, then automatically some API call will be made to AWS, and you would make some request, and the request would be create a machine or create a VPC, whatever action that you want to take. You would run it like a script or some command which will in fact make some API call to AWS, and AWS will take care of doing whatever action that you have requested through this script. So this kind of access people would get, and it is again through IAM. So you need an IAM user who should have access to programmatic. We have seen when we learned S3 CMD, we used a tool called S3 CMD. Using S3 CMD, we actually uploaded some file to S3 bucket, or we created a bucket in the cloud using some command. So what actually happens is when you run that command, some API call will be made to the AWS system, and you would authenticate to the AWS system using your access key and secret key. You create a IAM user who has programmatic access, then you will get access key and secret key. Using this access key and secret key is how you would run the command on the client side, which will in fact connect with your AWS system and get the action done. So AWS EC2 tools is something that AWS provides that contain all the command that you can run within AWS. And this toolkit can be installed on a Windows machine, it can be installed on a MacBook, it can be installed on a Linux machine, It can be installed anywhere. Then you get option to execute the commands. Whatever command you can execute, which will in fact do some action on the AWS side. It's called CLI tools of AWS, or Amazon EC2 command line tools. So what I'm going to do is I have a Windows system. I will use that machine, or I can install directly on my Mac also. The command line tools I can directly install in my Mac. In my case, I'm going to log into my Ubuntu server, and inside the Ubuntu server is where I'm going to set up this tool. So first run apt get update, and the package name is apt get install AWS CLI. Run this command, which will actually install the AWS CLI tool in your system. Give yes, that's it. In case of Windows, you can download the executable file. Install AWS CLI in Windows. Yeah, command line interface of Amazon. Go to this page. Over here, you have the option to, if you are using Windows, you can download either 64-bit or 32-bit version, depending on which operating system you are using. Or in case of Mac and Linux, this is the command you can run that will install AWS CLI in your Linux or in your Mac. So once you install that in your Windows, then you can open the PowerShell. There is a PowerShell option. It is not CMD, not the Windows command line. I think in Windows command line also you can run the commands. That will work. Or better, you can, there is a application called PowerShell in Windows 7 and all above Windows 7. There is an application called PowerShell, which is a advanced command line where you can run these CLI tools, CLI commands. So yeah, right now I installed the CLI tools inside my Ubuntu operating system. Whatever, it's fine. And first thing that you want to do is you need to configure your AWS CLI tool. So once you install this AWS CLI, you will be able to run a command called AWS. So first thing that you want to do is run the command AWS configure. AWS space configure is the command that you need to run. Basically, to provide the access key, secret key, and everything, right? When you want to connect to AWS, you need to authenticate with AWS first through an IAM user. So you need to provide the access key and secret key of the user, using which your command line tool would execute the command. So first thing I want to do is I'm going to create a user, a administrator user. I will go to IAM. I will create a new user who has full privileges. Or maybe I already have a user, but I don't have the access key. Okay, I'll create a new user, give it some name, AWS CLI or something. I want him to have programmatic access. So check this box, then click on next. Permission, I want him to have administrator permission. So click on this button, select administrator access. Click on review, then click on create user button. The user would be created and he would automatically get the administrator access, means all privileges. He can do anything inside your AWS account. He can create machine, delete machine, stop machine, terminate them, create key pair, create VPC, anything that he want to do, he can do it. That's what I mean by administrator access. This is his access key. So I am providing his access key to my AWS CLI tool. The secret key, click on show button, you will see the secret key. Then it will ask you what is the default region. Let's say I am trying to create a new EC2 machine. In which region the EC2 machine would be created, and need to specify the default region. So let it be Mumbai. AP South 1 is what Mumbai is. default output for let it be. That's it. So I provided the access key, secret key, and the default region. Now I can start running the command. Actually, you don't need to follow any documentation. The good thing with the AWS command is the help page comes with a lot of information. So run this command. What the approach that you need to follow would be: first run the command AWS, then space help. So AWS is the actual command that you need to run with different arguments. So we will take a look what are the different arguments that you have. Run the command AWS help. It would basically show you what are the different services that you can work with. ACM, API gateway, auto scaling, budgets, right? Cloud formation, CloudFront. Some of them we already had learned. Many of them we haven't learned, right? EC2. So DynamoDB, there are different services that you can work with. So let's say which service you want to work with. Let's say you want to work with load balancer, you want to create a load balancer, or you want to work with EC2, you want to create a new EC2 machine. So select whatever service that you want to work with. Let's say in my case it's EC2. So now the command would be AWS EC2. Then I need to provide whatever command that I want to execute within EC2. Again, I can type the help page to find out what are the available commands out there. So AWS EC2 space help command would actually show me within EC2 what are the available commands. So run this command. It would show you these are the available commands within EC2. Accept reserved instances exchange code. Accept maybe allocate address. What does this? Basically, if you want to create a new elastic IP, this is the command you need to use. Allocate host. If you want to create a dedicated machine, dedicated host, this is the command that you need to use. Assign private IP address. If you want to assign a private VPC IP address to your instance, this is the command that you need to use. Associate address. If you want elastic IP address to be associated with a EC2 machine, this is the command. So like that, associate route table. If you want to attach, yeah, even VPC also comes under EC2 only in case of command line tools, but that's okay. Yeah, we don't care. Associate route table is a command that you can use to associate a route table with a subnet. So these were different action that we had already done in the AWS management console. The same thing that we can do here also in command line also. Attach classic link VPC, something we didn't discussed. Attach internet gateway. So you can use this command if you want to attach your internet gateway to the VPC. So most of the time the name itself is you will understand by the attached volume if you want to attach a new volume to your EC2 machine. So basically by the name itself you can clearly see what they will do. And create instance or run instance, I think. Yeah, run instances is a command using which you can create a new instance inside your EC2. So there are many. So let us go ahead and create a new EC2 instance by running this command, run instances. So this is the command which I want to execute within EC2. So the syntax is going to be AWS EC2, then the command which I want to execute. So now again, I don't know what are the arguments that I need to pass. Of course, if I want to create a new EC2 machine, I need to specify what is going to be the AMI I need to use, what is the instance type, T2 micro or whatever, how much volume size I need to create, the default volume size, the security group, the key name, right? There are many things, the tags, there are many things that I want to provide along with running this command. So I don't know the syntax again. What is the exact syntax of this particular command again? So I again run this command help. Then it would show you what are the different options that you can use along with run instances command. These are the different options. One is image ID, if you want to specify which AMI ID you want to use. Image ID, key name, which key pair you want to use. Security groups, which security group you want to use. So like that, user data, if you want to pass in user data, instance type, which instance type you want to use. So let me go ahead and create a new machine. --image ID. I want the image ID to be, let's say I want to create a Ubuntu server. My intention is I want to create a Ubuntu server. Then I will go ahead and find out the AMI ID of my Ubuntu server. Click on launch instance. Over here I can see the AMI ID for Ubuntu. This is the Ubuntu AMI. So using this AMI, I want my EC2 instance to be created. Okay. And I want the instance type to be T2 micro. And then what I want, then I want the key name to be key name, right? Key name to be December 14, right? You can see the list of key pair over here, right? If you are in doubt, you can just go here, click on key pair. You can see what are the available key pair that you have. I have a key pair called December 14. I want my machine to be created with this public key, this particular key. I want my machine to be launched with. So yeah, I think that's going to be enough. Let's go ahead and run this particular command. Yep, that's it. So what happened is this command is run, then internally this CLI tool sent some API call. It made some API call to the AWS and passed this information. Then automatically a new instance got created inside your AWS account. So go to your AWS account, go to the Mumbai region, that was your default region. Go to that region, you can see your new machine is getting launched. Click on instances. You can see a new machine is being launched, this machine. And as the machine is getting created, you will get a JSON response. As soon as you successfully run this command, you will get a JSON response, which is nothing but the information about your machine, the reservation ID, the instance ID. You can see the instance ID somewhere, right? Where is that? And you can see the private IP of your machine, the instance type, the root device name, right? Like that, key name, hypervisor type, right? The hyper virtualization type, which AMI, the 64-bit architecture, right? The security group, even though we did not specified any security group, by default it would create a security group. And then, right, like that, all the settings about my machine would be printed as the output, which VPC my machine got created. It would be the default VPC. If I don't specify the VPC, it's going to be the default VPC. So what is the private IP? All these things I can see. What is the instance ID? We can check in the console to make sure that it's the correct instance ID. So this is the exact machine that got created. So all this information you will get in a JSON response itself. Great. Yeah. So that's how you can create a new machine inside AWS. Okay, great. Now let's say you want to stop the machine. You already created the machine. The machine is in running status. Now you want to stop the machine. So you don't know the command. What is the command you need to use to stop? What you would do? Again, run the command AWS EC2 help. It will show you what are the available commands. Maybe search for stop. I think the command is stop instances or something. Yeah, this is the command to stop instance. So what you would do, again, you don't know the syntax. Stop instances space help. Then over here you can see this is what you need to provide, the instance ID. So the command is going to be, you need to specify the instance ID of the machine. This is the instance ID that I want to stop. Now you can see a JSON response saying that the machine is now getting stopped. Previously it is in running status. Now it is being stopped. That information you can see in the output. Now if you go to your console, go ahead and refresh, you can see the machine is getting stopped. Now you want to terminate the machine. What is the command? Again, you don't know the command. I think the command is terminate something. Terminate instances. Yeah, this is the command you can use to terminate a instance. And again, I think the syntax is same. You need to provide the instance ID. terminate instances, then instance ID you need to provide like this. This particular command would actually terminate your machine. Now the status changed to terminated. Earlier it was in stopped status. So now if you go ahead and refresh, you can see the machine got terminated immediately. Or now let's say you want to create, what you want to do now, you want to create a new key pair, or let's say you want to create a elastic IP. So go ahead and run the command AWS easy to help. You have already seen there's a command called allocate address. So run this command. Maybe I think you don't need to pass any arguments, right? Do you really need to pass any arguments if you want to create a new elastic IP? Probably not, because from the dashboard, all you do is just click on this button, allocate address, and address is created. So maybe you don't need to give any arguments. Just run this command. Yeah, then the elastic IP got created. You can see the IP address here itself. So go ahead and refresh your page. You can see the IP address got created. Now let's say you want to associate this address with your EC2 machine. There is another command. What is that? Easy to help. You can see there's a command called associate address. Go ahead and check the syntax of associate address. You can see you need to provide the instance ID where you want to associate it. Then you also need to provide the allocation ID of the elastic IP. I think two of this is fine. Either you can provide these two information, basically which IP you want to attach to what machine you want to attach. Only these two information is sufficient. Or you can simply specify instance ID and the allocation ID. Each elastic IP will get a unique allocation ID. That is also you can specify. So if I run it, I will get disconnected. Okay, I'll run it anyway. So associate address, sorry. The command is associate address hyphen instance ID where I want to attach it. So I am going to attach it to this machine. I already have one machine. Actually, that is the machine where I am working in right now. This command I am executing from the same machine. So if I run this command, it's not the IP, it's the instance ID, and I need to specify. Then I need to mention which IP I want to attach to this machine. Which IP I want to attach? This IP. So if I run this command, the command would succeed. The problem is I will get disconnected. The reason is it's the same machine I am working in right now. So now my connection got stuck. That's fine. So now you go to your instance page, click on instance. You can see the instance got the elastic IP. Okay. Now we want to remove this elastic. I am going to log into this machine again because I got disconnected. It would throw me some warning. No, I am disconnected. Okay, so now I am running another command. I want to remove this IP address. I want to disassociate, I mean basically disassociate the address from the EC2 machine. What's the command? AWS EC2, run the command help. I don't know what is the exact command for that. Just search for address. Come down. Describe. Disassociate address. There's a command called disassociate address. Use this command if you want to disassociate the address elastic IP from your EC2 machine. Probably all you need to do is specify your instance ID. Then automatically IP address would be disassociated from your instance ID. Most probably that's all you need to specify. Or should you specify IP also? I think not required. Let's see. Or I think all you need to specify is the IP. Let's try this. Maybe you need to provide both. Yeah, actually all you need to provide is only the IP. Let's go ahead and run this command. Specify which IP you want to disassociate. This is the elastic IP. I want to make it free. That's it. Run this command. Then now you refresh this EC2 page. You can see the IP address is gone. Now you come to the elastic IP page. You can see the IP address is now free. Now I want to release this address. I think the command is release address. Again, I need to log in again because the IP address of my machine has changed. So yeah, let me log in again, and then I would run the command release address. I think that is the command I need to run. AWS EC2, or you can confirm again, type AWS EC2 help. I think the command is release address. Yes, run this command release address, and I assume all you need to do is just specify the IP address that you want to release. But is your elastic IP? This is the elastic IP that you want to release. It's allocation ID also you need to specify. Okay, it's not only the public IP. If you want to release the address, you should also mention. You can see the error. You can see the proper error here itself. Again, you can, if you want to be sure, you can look for the syntax. What is the syntax? Release address --help would show you the EC2 release address. Hyphen is not required. Sorry, help. You can specify the allocation ID also if you want to release the IP. So allocation ID is equal to, here you can see the allocation ID. Select your elastic IP, you can see the allocation ID. I think that's all you need to specify. Yeah, that's it. So now you refresh it, you can see that the IP address is gone. So anything, any action that you want to do, you want to create a load balancer or anything, there is a command for that. And it is pretty straightforward, right? As you have seen, I never used any documentation. If you want to explain any kind of command, the help command is sufficient to find out, to understand the syntax of each commands, and to see the list of commands that are available within EC2 and the list of services that I can work in the command line tools. So AWS help is the command which will actually show me the list of services I can work with. AWS, then the service name space help is the command which would actually show me for this particular service what are the available commands. Or I can run the command AWS service name command name, then run the help command. It would show you the exact syntax of the command. So this way I can simply keep on running the help page to get to understand what are the different option I can use for a command. You don't really need to, you got it right. There is no need to go into any documentation on web. You can see all syntax here itself. It's pretty straightforward. Right. Yeah, so any question? So why these command line tools are being used for? Whenever you want to do some kind of automation, right? Let's say you are in a situation like uh, you want to do some deployment, right? You are going to do some deployment, or you want to do some maintenance work on all your EC2 machine, all your WordPress machine, or the web application machine. So basically you have a load balancer which is serving live traffic. People browsing for your web application are hitting the load balancer, and there are let's say some 50 machine connected with the load balancer, 50 backend EC2 instances that is running your web application that are serving the people on the web. Now let's say You want to perform a maintenance on all these machine. You need to stop Apache in this machine, then want to do maybe add some website, then you need to start Apache again. So there are some maintenance that you want to perform on all 50 machines. So you want to make sure that when you are performing the maintenance, the machine is disconnected from the load balancer. Otherwise, the load balancer would keep on sending the live traffic to that machine, which is not advisable. So first you want to disconnect the machine from the load balancer. Then you want to perform the maintenance. And once the maintenance is completed, then you want to attach the machine back to the load balancer. So this is what you want to do. And you want to do that for all your 50 machines. So what you can actually do is, using this AWS command line tool, you can search for all your WordPress machine. Maybe you can perform a search in AWS based on the tag. So maybe you can, I don't know what is the exact command for searching the machine based on tag. AWS EC2 help. Describe tags. Okay, run this command, describe tags. Okay, if you run this command, it would give you a list of machine and their tags, key value pairs. I think this is not it. Do I have any tag for my EC2 machine? Name is equal to SS. Okay, there's a tag called name equal to SS. So I can see those tags here. Or I can run some command. JSON starting token, page size, filters. I can put some filters indicating that what I want to list. One or more filters, key, resource ID, instance, subnet, route table, security group, value, instance type, options, image instance. So you can run this command ---- filters. Maybe search in Google filter based on tag AWS CLI. Filtering using CLI, yeah. Command line references.
Specific,
Script tags. Yeah.
Mr. Basil.
Yes, Muzammil.
Yes, basically we are we are using the EC2 command line to run the EC2 command line. Why basically it is used for automation, am I right?
Right. It is for automation. Correct.
Automation, and
So
we are using the tools to run the command, am I right?
we are using AWS CLI is the tool that you need to install on your laptop or on the machine where you want to execute this command. Yes. Okay, so basically what we can actually do is you can perform some search for the machine based on their tag. So basically this is one command that would list down all your web server machines, or maybe you put tag type equal to web. So like this, you can filter your output. Right now, actually, I don't have any machine that has tag type equal to web. So maybe I will do that. What I would do is I am going to create a new tag. Click on add tag button. I am adding type is equal to web. So I'm creating a new tag for one of my EC2 machine. Now I want to search using my command line for all the machine that has tag type is equal to web. Now I can see all the machine that has tag type is equal to web. Then I can filter out the instance ID. Then I can, now I have the list of machine, right? Now I have the list of machine which has the given tag. Then I want to perform the main runs on these machines. What I would do, first I will connect to the first machine. Maybe I got the instance ID. Now I want to get the public IP of the machine. What I can do, I can again run another command, AWS EC2. There's a command called describe instances, DSCRIB, describe instance. Then I can provide the instance ID. I think this is the syntax. If you have the list of instance ID, then you can run this particular command that would actually show you. Describe instances is the actual command. It should be instance IDs. Yeah. It would basically show you the information about your instance where you can actually see the public IP. So public IP you can see somewhere here. This is the public IP, or you can maybe search for grep's public IP would actually show you the XR public IP. So this is your public IP, and you want to connect to this machine through SSH and then perform the main runs. No, before performing the main runs, what you want to do is you want to disconnect this machine from the load balancer, because you don't want live traffic to be going to the machine while it is under main run. So then there is a command to detach the machine from the load balancer. I think the command is AWS ELB help command. There is something called detach from load balancer, something. Detach load balancer from subnets is an option, but register instances with load balancer. Search for there's a command called deregister instances with from load balancer. Basically, if you run this particular command, then you need to provide the instance ID, something like this. Yeah, you need to provide from which load balancer you want to disconnect and what is the instance ID that you want to disconnect. So provide this information, then that machine will get disconnected from the load balancer. Then perform the main runs. Then once the maintenance is completed, then you can again, there's a command called register instances with load balancer. There's a command called register instances with load balancer. Using this command, you can attach the machines back. So basically using a script, you can perform the maintenance on all 50 machines in a secure way. While the machine is under maintenance, the machine would stay disconnected from the load balancer. So this kind of automation you want to perform. Or sometimes you want to do some kind of monitoring. You want to monitor your CPU usage on the machines. Then based on the CPU usage, you want to create a new machine. Maybe if the CPU usage is very high, you want to create a new machine. So in such situations, you want to write some shell script or you want to write some Python program. You can write the script for that. So in such situations, these command line tools are very helpful. Right? So to your assignment, do this CloudWatch, create some alarm, maybe one or two alarm that would actually check the CPU utilization of your machines, your WordPress machines, Tomcat machines, or whatever machine that you have, your MySQL machines. On all the machines, just perform some CPU monitoring using CloudWatch, and enable CloudFront for your website. If you already have registered your website, enable CloudFront for your website. What you need to do, you need to create a CloudFront account. Then you need to point your website, add a CNAME record to point your website to the CloudFront name. That's only two things you need to do. So complete the full AWS assignment by this weekend, because next week we are going to start with Chef. That could be a little new to you, because basically we need to start with the project. Actually, the Chef course would be completed within 3-4 days. So you need to start the project then. So before we start with Chef on Monday, I want you to complete the AWS assignment. Then on Monday we will discuss how we can explain this as a project to the interviewer. Those things we will discuss on Monday. Yeah. So any questions? Mm-hmm.
Basil,
Yeah.
or can you send me the assignment copy once again so I can on my email? Can you send me the assignment copy?
It is there in the drive.
Okay.
It is there in the Google Drive. Yeah.
I hope I didn't ask disturbing questions. Is it?
No, basically, I mean, the only thing that I am worried is not the questions. The only thing that I am worried is you are making sure that you are completing the videos and the classes. That is more important.
Yes, I am completing the videos. I'm seeing the videos.
Yeah. Don't, I mean, throw any questions. That's not a problem at all, right? Just
Yeah.
make sure that any question.
Actually, Basil, the weather is here very bad, so
Yeah, yeah.
that's not an excuse. But
But
you
just
know,
at least you have the videos. Just make sure that
yes, yes.
you are.
I'm trying to dominating the class, and I take the maximum classes of yours.
Mhm,
So I think I just miss out five or four classes. That's it.
mhm. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Sure. Cool. Cool then. So, yeah. Thank you. Thank you all.